Let me ask you something. When is the last time that you were astonished? I mean, really amazed or surprised at something you'd seen or experienced? Well, creating astonishing experiences is my job. Hi, I'm Steve, and I'm a magician. I love introducing myself that way to people at parties because as soon as those words leave my mouth, I can see the astonishment in their eyes. Of course, that could be a look of sheer terror because a grown man just introduced himself as a magician, but stick with me on the astonishing part here for today. I've gotten to introduce myself that way for over 30 years now. And I got to admit, after all this time, it still feels pretty cool. See, that's me when I was 14 years old doing one of my first magic shows in my dad's leisure suit jacket. Get a load of that bow tie. It was the 70s. Now, if I came up to you at a party and introduced myself that way, what would be the first question that popped into your mind? Here's the top two that I really get. Hi, I'm Steve, and I'm a magician. Oh yeah? What instrument do you play? I get that a lot more than you'd think. And number two, how do you do that trick where you make a lady levitate or an elephant disappear or whatever trick they saw on TV last night? Well, after 30 years of performing and studying magic, I've come to learn that why a trick works is actually more interesting than how it works. I mean, what is it that takes a simple trick like pulling your finger off, something you might have learned in elementary school? What takes that simple trick and elevates it to a magical moment in somebody's mind? Well, in order to understand that, we have to talk about what astonishment really is. About 25 years ago, I read an essay by a magician named Paul Harris, and he talked about the moment of astonishment. And this changed the way I thought about the experiences that I wanted to give my audiences. Basically, he said that we're all born with a clean slate. The first time we experience anything is astonishing. Even something as mundane as what a tree looks like or what the warm breeze feels like on your cheek is magical the first time you experience it. Well, then as we grow and get older, we experience more and more things, and these become normal things, and they just stack up and block that natural state of astonishment. Then the magician comes along and shows you something that you can't fit into one of your normal experiences, and then they all fall away, just exposing that natural astonishment once again. And I think that's why I always hear people say, hey, do another one, because they want to experience that astonishment, that childlike wonder once again. To sum up, Paul said that astonishment is not an emotion that we create, it's an existing state that we uncover. And I really like those words. Now, I've been fortunate enough to live my dream and travel the world doing magic. And what I've learned is that even if I come into a country where I can't speak a word of the language, I can communicate with astonishment. If I make something disappear or I make something float, the reaction is pretty much the same wherever I go. So, I would like to try something now. Little audience participation. Everybody put your hands up like this. I can see you, so I can see if you're not. All right, like this. Now put your hands like this. Put your hands like this. And say, please, Lord, don't let me be the one he picks to come up on stage. It's a pretty universal thought. It's okay. You can stay in your seats for this one. I'm going to use everybody. The really terrifying stuff comes much later in my talk. Do me a favor. Put your hands together like this. Cross your thumbs in the back. Hold your hands nice and tight. Firm grip. Extend your index fingers like this. And pull your fingers apart just a little bit. Your index fingers apart. Now, just relax. Don't fight it. But imagine now that I'm taking a red thread and I'm wrapping it around the tips of your fingers. And as I wrap that thread around the tips of your fingers, I'll wrap it tighter and tighter, pulling your fingertips in toward each other as I wrap that thread tighter and tighter until your fingers touch. Now, if they haven't come together by now, they're probably a lot closer than they were. Now, if you notice, I gave you a very strong visual. I didn't just say a thread, I said a red thread. Try this next time you're at a party. It'll really work on anybody, and you'll get your own reactions of astonishment. Now, another thing I've learned in my many years of performing is that the easiest person to fool is a scientist. Really. Who do you think the hardest, most difficult person to fool is? A child. That's because children don't think from like A to B to C. They don't have those experiences. They think all over the place. And so like if I put a coin in my hand and I make it disappear, in your minds, or any adult, it doesn't just have to be a scientist, but any adult, you're going to have a moment where you think that coin disappeared. Well, a child went out in my hand, they just said the coin's not there. So if it's not there, it must be somewhere else. They start looking around for it. So I got to be quick with kids. So I'm going to show you a trick right now. One of the first tricks that I ever saw a magician do when I was about 5 years old. And I want you to kind of think like a child as you watch this. This magician came out and he kind of rummaged around in his pockets like this. And he took out a white handkerchief. He says, I will now do the amazing color-changing handkerchief trick. He took the white handkerchief. He started pushing it into his hand. And he pulled it out this end, red. The handkerchief went in the top, white, came out the bottom, red, until the entire handkerchief had changed to red. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. I said, it's in your hand. Yeah, I was that kid. He says, what? Hey, kid, what are you, 4? No, you're probably 5. He says, you shouldn't talk back to the magician like that. And he left the stage. I ran after him. I went to his dressing room. I said, I have to know how this trick works. He says, well, you seem like you're interested in magic. I'll teach you. You're lucky. I haven't unloaded yet. He said, I keep a white handkerchief down here in my hand. He says, to set it up, you take the red handkerchief and you push it all the way down. Now, it has to be 100% pure silk so it balls up really, really small, like that. He said, you get it all pushed down your hand, and then you take the white handkerchief and hold it here. Now, at this point, you're set. Don't ever open this hand. He said, I can because I'm a magician, but you probably shouldn't do that. He says, then when you come out on stage, you wave the white handkerchief around to make a little misdirection, and then you start pushing it into your hand. And when you push the white one in, you pull that red one out. Remember the one I put in earlier? You pull the red one out. You push the white one in, the red one comes out. The white one goes in, the red one comes out. Oh, by the way, he said, don't ever do this. Yeah, blows the whole trick. He said, you keep pushing it in, pull the red one out a little bit at a time. Oh, he said another thing is, since this is 100% pure silk, make sure you don't have a hangnail. Because what will happen is as you're pushing it in, the silk might catch on your hangnail like this, and then it'll pull the white end out over there. If that happens, he said, don't freak out. He said, reach in your pocket for a little magic wiffle dust. Sprinkle it over and show the people what real magic would look like. Thank you. Now, another thing that people like to ask me, they say, Steve, because that's my name. They say, Steve, are you astonished by other magicians? And yes, I am. I love it when this happens. When somebody shows me something new that they've invented or something so old that everybody's forgotten about it, it really blows my mind. And I love having this feeling because it reminds me of the feeling that I give to my audiences. Well, a couple years ago, I read a quote by Roald Dahl. And he's the author that wrote such classic children's books as Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Matilda. And what caught me the most about this quote was the part where it says, and above all, watch the world with glittering eyes, for the greatest secrets are often hidden in the most unlikely places. This is what started me on my quest to discover astonishment every day with just the things that are around me. Now, I live in Tokyo. I've lived there for about 19 years now, and my hobby is photography. One of my favorite subjects is taking photos of the moon. One night I walked down to Tokyo Bay, which is right near my house, wanting to take some pictures of the full moon that night. But when I got down there, it was overcast and I couldn't see the moon. Well, I was disappointed. But as the sun went down, those same clouds created a beautiful orange glow over everything in my neighborhood. So I decided to walk around and just focus in literally on just the beautiful things in my neighborhood. And as I walked around, I got these photos that night. I went home and I posted them on Facebook, and I wrote the feelings that I had and how I focused in on the beautiful things. And when I got home, one of the first comments that I got was from my neighbor who said, "That's my neighborhood too. I never realized how beautiful it was." Bingo. Mission accomplished. So I got to give you a warning, though. If you have an astonishing feeling that you have inside of you, maybe a childhood memory or something that you saw recently that you can't explain, I believe that it's not necessary to ask too many questions. I don't think you have to figure everything out. I really think that a little mystery is a good thing to keep inside of you. A great story about that is about my Uncle Marvin. Now, I was born right here in Holland, Michigan, and so was my mom, Nancy, and my Uncle Marvin Freestone. And when I was 6 years old, my Uncle Marvin showed me the very first card trick that I ever saw in my life. I reached in, I took a card, he told me what it was. Well, as I started studying magic, I realized how difficult a trick like that is to do. When I was 29, I was visiting my parents in Florida, and my Uncle Marvin and Aunt Margie were there too, and I said, "Uncle Marvin, you showed me a card trick when I was 6 years old. Do you by any chance remember what that card trick was?" He said, "Well, I only know one card trick, so yeah, I know what it was." I was so excited. I gave him the cards, and as soon as he started to do it, I recognized it as just a very basic beginner card trick. And it took away that astonishing feeling from me. It became just a beginner's trick that I'd learned years ago. I was really sorry that I asked him to do it again. I wanted that memory back. Well, sometimes the universe has a way of giving it back to you, because 15 years later, I was doing a show in Thailand. I was out to dinner with some of the performers after the shows. We met this young American traveler who was by himself. Seemed like a nice guy, so we invited him back to hang out with us in the lobby of the hotel that night. I did a card trick, and afterwards he said, "I know a card trick, and can I do it?" I said, "Sure." I give him the cards, and he starts doing that exact same trick that Uncle Marvin had done for me when I was 6, and again when I was 29. And he was doing it the exact same way, and it blew my mind. Why did it blow my mind? Because 4 hours before we went out to dinner, I got an email from my mom saying that Uncle Marvin had passed away that day. And here I am on the other side of the world seeing this card trick one more time. Amazing. So to finish up, I want to tell a story that my mom always told me when I was a kid that really remains in my mind as a very astonishing thing. She told me a story about her dad, my grandfather, Walter Grant Freestone. And she said that on Saturday nights, he would bring this table out into the living room, and they would put their hands around it, and they would say, "Rise, table, rise. Rise, table, rise. Rise, table, rise." And that table would float around the room. Well, my sister and I used to beg her to do this trick for us, but she never did it. We would try, and it never worked. I always had this image in my mind of it kind of being a dimly lit room with some spooky music, some cool music playing. But it never worked out. But you know, it's been 30 years since I've been back here in Holland, Michigan. I got my grandfather's table. Tonight, I'd like to try to play perfect. Rise, table, rise. I need somebody to help me, though. Hi.
Hi.
What's your name?
Terry.
Terry, come on up here, Terry. You might help me out. Big round of applause for Terry. right up here. Ooh, it's going to be fun. Stand right here. Do me a favor, Terry. Just hold on to the tips of the head. Come a little closer. You can come a little closer. Yeah, that's all right. No, yeah, I know you have to stay in the circle and don't cuss. It's all right. Here we go. Just like that. All right. Ready? Say it with me. Rise, table, rise. Rise, table, rise. Rise, table, rise. That would have been really cool if it worked, wouldn't it? Yeah, no, sorry. Let's try it again. Wait a minute. Ready?
Okay.
Here, let's take this magic handkerchief and put it in this box. There we go. Ready? Makes it even cooler, doesn't it? Yeah. Watch. Rise, table, rise. Rise, table, rise. Rise, table, rise. Rise, table, rise. Go ahead and check it out. Look at it. Whoa, wait a minute. Go up, go up. Up, 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 up. All right. Stay in the circle. Oh, it's moving. It's moving. Ready? Keep moving. Moving. Whoa, go up, 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 up. Up, up, up. Oh, there it goes. All right. No. Got to tell us. Stay in the circle. Table.
And no cussing.
Yeah. No. And let it just drift slowly back down. Let go. Come here. Take it back. Thank you. Be very careful. Those stairs are treacherous. All right. Very good. All right. Let's try it one more time for Grandpa. Rise, table, rise. Rise, table, rise. Right. Whoa. Wait a minute. Oh. Thank you very much. Thank you. In the spirit of what's next here at TEDxMacatawa, I'd like to challenge you tonight when you leave the theater to see something you didn't see when you came in, something beautiful, the way the shadow from the marquee falls on the sidewalk. If there's a piece of ice, notice the shape it's in, the shape of the water that it creates as it melts. When you see a sunset, realize that you're never going to see the same sunset again. It's always going to be different. The clouds will be in a different formation. The lighting will be a little bit different. When you wake up in the morning, notice the way the sun streams in through your window, and just something as normal as the way the light hits the corner of your dresser and bends around and moves as the sun does. There's beauty and astonishment all around us. But above all, watch with glittering eyes the whole world around you, for the greatest secrets are often hidden in the most unlikely places. So I'll leave you with one question. How much better could your life be if you were astonished every day? Thank you.